Hi, and welcome to this week's Something for the Weekend special. And today's special, we bring you a Bob Heil from Heil Sounds. So over to Bob, really. And afternoon to you, Bob, or morning, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. And really, really glad to be here. Hope everybody's safe and trundling through all the pandemic. But Zoom allows us to get together and share ideas and make good contacts. I appreciate this time here with you.
No, thank you. We really appreciate you putting the time in here as well and joining us, as I said, this afternoon here in the store in Staines. So for those that don't know, and hopefully there'll be few and far between, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the company Heil Sounds?
Well, I started in 1956. I got a ham license, KN9 EID that only lasted a few weeks, and it was a wonderful time. My parents bought me a Harvey Wells and an SX99, and that big box is a converter for VHF because I was a technician for 17 years. I joined I didn't realize it, but it was the start of the largest sunspot cycle, and 6 meters, 2 meters, wide open all the time. At that same time, at the age of 15, I was a theater organist here at the Fox Theater and still doing that. But it taught me how to listen. We had to voice and tune about 3,500 pipes from 1 inch to 32 foot. And that's how I learned to listen. And it's really sad because a lot of people, they just hear. Listening is a mental process. And so we had to go in and listen to all the harmonics and so on. And little did I know that the teaching of actually listening would be the foundation for several of my careers later on. But ham radio grew quickly. I became fascinated with them, and my station grew very quickly. I got involved with an engineer that helped me. We built one of the first 10 single sideband stations on 6 meters, and lots of big antennas, 110-foot Roan with 36-foot long Telerexes and all this kind of stuff. My parents were very forgiving and built a Johnson Thunderbolt to give me 1.5 kilowatts on VHF. So I was really into all of this, and I didn't realize that I was just one of a few on single sideband until I got a call one day from Bob Drake of the Drake Company. He wanted to know if I was the guy that had that kilowatt on single sideband 6 meters. And I said, yes, sir. He said, we'd like for you to join us in our meeting. We do this technical meeting once a year, and it's held in the Biltmore Hotel. They'd taken all the furniture out of one of the floors, and they had all of the greats there. And as a young kid into ham radio, these guys were celebrities. Wes Shum was there. He's the man that brought single sideband to ham radio. It wasn't Art Collins. It was Wes 6 years before. Cara Mosley was there. Bill Halligan. The Collins guys were there. J-Beam Company was there. And I was familiar with their product, but where was all of this? It was in the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Dayton, Ohio. It was one of the first hamventions. It was held for about 10 years in the Biltmore until in 64, they moved out to the Ahara. But it was fascinating time for this young guy. J-Beam wanted me to work with them on an experiment. They had an antenna they wanted me to put up, and they sent over 128 elements, and had a Motorola dealer and a contract guy locally, and they were hams, and they put all these things up. There's no way this kid could put up 110-foot Roan, but in the spare lot beside our home, we put up a 40-foot Roan and a 40-foot boom and all the phasing harnesses. And I got really involved in phasing. And we would just, the whole thing of ham radio just taught me so much. And I just have to pay homage to it. And that's why I do all these, to share some of the great science of it. But another part of my life, which we could be here for a long, long time, the bands, they discovered this guy with a soldering iron. Now we're talking about like 66, 67. And all of a sudden, they're all coming to me, and I started fixing amplifiers. And eventually, as it turned out, we were building large sound systems for the groups. And we're talking about some groups from the UK. We were very, very excited about those days. Peter Frampton, I invented the talk box for Peter, gave it to him for a Christmas present. And I think it was 74. Humble Pie, we did almost every show they did in America. The Grateful Dead, The Who, Kansas. The list is very long. And sometime we can come back and talk about that, but there's just not enough time to really go into this. My favorite, of course, I was very close with Pete Townsend and spent time in his lab there in London. And we did 6 years. I was with them. So these are all fascinating times for me. And there's so much history there. We had 35 people working in our plant, building all kinds of things. There was a talk box production there, and speakers and amplifiers. It was just an amazing time for us. But I got out of it. And 1980, got kind of tired, and music had changed. And then here's a guy that's never tasted beer. I've never smoked a cigarette and never did any drugs, of course, running around with some of the biggest drug addicts in the world. But there again, Pete always said, leave him alone. The guy's got his soldering iron and he makes this sound good. So hey, here we are, But it was amazing. But I'm so thrilled. We were at Pete's last concert. He's pretty much retired from touring, and but we still are very, very good friends. But then I hadn't been on the air for a long time, for about 12 years, because I was on the road. I come back on the ham radio. And I was stunned, because I wanted to know what happened to my great Art Collins audio. It was terrible. I mean, what'd you guys do? And so I had to really start investigating, because some of the signals I heard were not that clean, articulate signal. They were terrible. I'm going, what did you guys do to me? And so,
CQ field day, CQ field day, CQ field day, CQ field day, from kilowatt 5.
No, we got to do something.
Echo Oscar Kilo.
But there were a few guys that had it together. But I said, wait a minute, Heil, what's going on here? Because as I said, I was out of it. Well, in the time that I had left, and when I left, it was all Collins and Drake and a lot of tube radios with really beautiful articulate audio. I'm going, what happened? Well, the imports came in, and they're matching microphones. Well, I discovered the only matching thing where they were painted the same color. They really weren't articulate. They weren't the kind of microphones that we really needed to have in ham radio. But that wasn't the big deal. None of these radios that came over here had any kind of adjustments. The only thing you had was a mic gain. There weren't even bandwidth filters. So what are we going to do? Well, I in my of course my desire to solder things, I built the very first equalizer for ham radio. I did not know that this was the first, and no one else had done this. But after a year of experiments, I discovered, something is happening. And I was on the air for about a year, and all that time, people were, "What are you doing? How are you making that Kenwood or that Yaesu? How are you making these things sound so good?" Well, it was all about equalization. So I wrote an article, and it appeared in QST in 1982, and they called me from the ARRL and said, "This is a revelation. This is never done before. This is the first equalization that we've heard on ham radio. We're going to publish this. It will be the lead article, and it will receive our cover award." Well, I was all really kind of stunned about that because I figured somebody would have done it, but they didn't. And fast forward a little bit, in 1999, I get a letter from Dr. Inouye Communications, ICOM. He had a picture of his station. He had one of their great IC 781s at that time. That was the first rig that had a screen on it. It was actually a CRT. He had a picture of that, and he had one of my equalizers. And to really go crazy, I said, "What?" He had one of my Gold Line microphones. And the Gold Line into that equalizer, because the equalizer had a preamp in it, it was magnificent. So he said, "I'm thinking of new radio line, and I like to incorporate EQ 200. Now, I thought it was very kind. He, didn't need me. They could figure out what the frequencies were. But it is, as we're going to learn in a little bit, it's very important as to what the frequencies are of the filters. And I had determined that 160 on the low end, 160 hertz, we could minus or plus it. We certainly didn't want to plus it. We wanted to minus that bass and get rid of some of it. And you got to balance it. But where's the second one? It's 2.5K. You're going to hear this a lot in the next hour. And we could really bring that 2.5K up. Well, what's all this about? Well, it's about our ears. And what had happened, I had got, shortly before all this, I had gotten a call from Paul Klipsch. Paul Klipsch was the father of the folded horn. He was actually the lead in the hi-fi movement of the late 40s into the 50s. He called me one day and he said, "Are you the guy that's got that couple of kilowatt sound system?" And I said, "I am, sir. I want to come and see it," because he had never seen anything like this. He could take 1 watt and do 105 dB easily at a yard. It was really something. He come to see me and all day long, "Well, why did you do this? How did you do that? Where'd you learn to do that ham radio?" No, like, what school did you go to? I didn't go to school. I hardly made it out of high school because I had a profession. I was making quite a bit of money as a young kid playing the organ and doing things in that world. So I barely made it. Grades were terrible, but I didn't care. I knew what I wanted to do in my life. And I did for about 12, 13 years, play the organ professionally. But he was amazed. I told him I learned it from ham radio. And so many times when I'd be out on the road with the Who or Frampton or the guys, that asked the electricians in the building or the sound guy, "Where'd you learn all this?" "Ham radio." "No, where did you learn it?" "Ham radio." "Well, you don't understand, kid." "No, you don't understand. I learned it from all the experiments I did. And listening, I learned from the theater organ, voicing the pipes." So Paul put me in his plane. We went down to Hope, Arkansas that night. That was his home, and it was quite amazing. I was in for a big treat. He had an old telephone exchange building that had been vacated, and that was his lab. And there's one of his folded horns. He made one out of plexiglass so he could see all of the different angles. It was truly exponential horn, and the last 8 foot on each side was your walls. You put it in a corner. And this was just fascinating stuff. And he helped me so much. But he started telling me things in those few days we were with him. He said, you need to study the Bell Labs of the early 20s. And he talked about the telephone system. He said they didn't work well when they first put them up. They were mushy. There was no speech articulation. And he said they had to do something. So what did they do? They turned 4,000 scientists. That's, I'm not just making this up. It's true. You see, he guided me to all this stuff. I had to go to the libraries to learn all of this. You guys and gals can go to go to Google. No big deal. Yeah. But we're really going to get, I want to change microphones for you because, okay. This, by the way, is one of our PR22s, which I built at the invitation of Paul Rogers of Bad Company. He wanted a microphone that was very articulate and you didn't have to equalize it because his sound man didn't know how to do that. Okay. Well, anyway, I started doing their studies and learning what they were up to. And what happened, they put the telephone system together. They had 2 wires, started in New Jersey, and all across America, every 500 miles were relay stations to bring the frequency up level, to bring the voltage up, audio up. All that had to be, had to be flat. Of course it did, right? Well, maybe. And after they did this and turned it on at first, it didn't work. Because this is what they heard when they picked up the phone in New Jersey, what they heard in the telephone out there. This is what they heard. There was no articulation, no rich speech articulation, nothing but big old boomy bassy. Something of what I heard when I first listened to ham radio when I got back. So what are they going to do? Well, it was pretty simple. They had 4,000 scientists, and that was their job, to bring the telephone system to life. The 2 leads were Dr. Harvey Fletcher and Dr. Weldon Munson. This is amazing stuff that they came up with. You see, everybody, and even today, well, oh, I hear flat, there's no problem. No, you don't. The human ear is very, very sensitive to frequency and level. Look at the top of this graph. At 100, 110 dB, it's almost flat. But down here where you're listening at 10 or 20 decibels, whoa, it looks like a ride at Disneyland. But what was so important was this. Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson discovered that you needed to hear 2.5K. That was very, very important, that you could listen to that frequency above everything else. And that's just what I did here. I'm going to touch nothing but the 2.5. This is a parametric equalizer, so I can change the frequency. Most of the equalizers, if they're just regular 2-band, 3-band, whatever, you can't change. You can only change the level. I was the engineer in that, and I selected 160 and 2.5K. Listen what happens when I take 2.5K out, just like I did a while ago. It's very difficult to hear the difference of an F and an S, a P and a B. The essence of sound is simply stunning. No, it's not. But let's put it back in. There's 2.5K. Now, the essence of sound is just so sweet. It is so stunning. And it's all about equalization. And when I first got into the building the equalizers, I had a lot of guys, and I was on the air a lot, and I still am. No, we don't need no EQ. Get out of here, Heil. We don't need that stuff. Well, I think you do. And I prove it so many times, almost each day. But now that they had discovered this problem with the telephone system, what were they going to do? Equalizers, that didn't have no one in the mix. The word wasn't even formed for that. So what they had discovered was they had to put together a series of high pass and low pass filters in the phone lines. And when a signal, look at that high pass filter, when a signal comes through the capacitor, depending on the size of the cap, it will go straight through to your amplifier. And if you want to roll off the bass, that's going to be because of the resistor. And with just those two components, you can make wonderful things happen. The other is a low pass. If you want to pass lows, you do it with the resistor and the capacitor in reverse. And it's wonderful. And there are equations to figure out exactly what to do. But what happened after that, this young man, look how young he was, John Volkman, he was an amazing young kid. He was working for RCA, and they put him in charge of doing a situation with trying to make the motion picture playback systems good. You see, talkies were coming in, silence were going out. And his job was to try to do something to make them sound good. And as you just heard, 2.5K, huh? He had figured it out, and he built a series of low pass and high pass. And by changing things around, he could figure out exactly which ones he needed to put into the system. Here's the interesting thing. 1930, nothing happened until in the 60s with equalization. There was a little bump when the hi-fi came in, but all the hi-fi systems, they just had a little variable resistor in that passive filter network. So it wasn't anything really great. And because in those days, the hi-fi, they wanted to be all flat. Yeah, right. Well, no, when you're talking speech, it's different. 1967, it all blew up big time. Langevin, who was building all kinds of recording equipment for studios, recording studios, they built the first equalizer. And as you upper, you see those upper knobs there, you can select the frequency, and then you can decrease or increase. That was a revelation. At that same time in my life, I was just getting into the sound reinforcement business. And it was crazy because we didn't have any good mixers. We didn't have any equalization. The mixer that you see at the bottom, that green mixer, my first concert was with Jimi Hendrix, and that's the mixer I used. It only had 6 channels. Think about this. When today we have mixers with 40 and 50 microphones input. Well, we did it with 6. And we were thrilled to do it, and so was he, because at that time, nothing else had been really happening. And so this all came about, and the equalizer from Langevin opened up a huge door, big time huge. Well, I needed to build a better console, and I had been following Langevin since the equalizer. They had just come out in 1968 with the AM4. You'll see 2 of them side by side. They're 8-channel mixers with no EQ, just mic mixers. Up above it was compression and limiting. But look over on the right side. There's a little bright light for it. They came up with this, and it was stunning. It was the first time that the industry had ever seen anything like this. You could vary the different frequencies. And yeah, their other one was like that, but it was cumbersome. This was cool, a graphic equalizer that was in this console. You can imagine when I'd go into the the halls with that mixer. Everybody went freako because Heil Sound was the leading sound reinforcement company at that time. But all of this came pretty fast, I have to tell you, in the sound reinforcement business. But I got out of that, as I said earlier, and Dr. Inouye had called me. I thought, uh-oh, here we got something going on. Well, his very first radio that he did the equalizer in was the Pro 1. The Pro 1, the Pro 2, the Pro 3, all the way through the lineup, all the way through this beautiful little guy. In fact, they just sent this to me not long ago because I have to build, or did build, a headset, the 705. What an amazing thing.
Amazing.
This
we're a big fan of the 705 here.
It's a 7300 plus. It's got D-Star and 2 meters in it. It's got my equalizer, all the graphic. It has absolutely everything in it that the 7300 has plus. Well, we had to get together and do some work because it used a very strange input to it, but we did. And the new little headset HTHI is beautiful, and it's very inexpensive. It's like the old drunk said, I spill more than this. But it's a wonderful thing. I never did much in the handy talk market because I wasn't much into it, but I got into it, and I found out all of these handy talkie mics and stuff are terrible. They're just awful, and some of them cost a lot of money. Well, what's wrong? Do the manufacturers not care? Well, none of the manufacturers build their microphones. I got news for you. I work for them. I know. And so they OEM it to some company, and it's just awful. Well, this little baby, we now make these for all the different headsets, very inexpensive. If you've never seen one, had one, I think they can help you right here.
Yeah, they've become very popular, Bob.
Yes,
and the 705s.
Yeah, and the other baby is this one. I did this for the backpackers. It also comes in the double set. I love the BM17, but I'll make a little nice announcement to you guys. I maybe shouldn't do this because they're all going to start calling you. Here is after, I don't know, it's been almost a year because we had trouble getting the parts I wanted because it got special parts. There's an adapter that you can plug any of our ICOM headsets into, and you have a push-to-talk switch. That's coming right around the corner. I figure a couple of months. So don't call the store. Say, well, you can get on the list.
They can always pre-order. Pre-order.
That's right. That's right. And we have another one coming that you'll be able to plug in any of our microphone, any of our IC has to have the element for ICOM, and you'll be able to plug in the ICM, which is the ICM. ICOM asked me to build this because I'm sorry, the microphones they had are just not really that great. This is a magnificent microphone, and it's not expensive. It's the ICM. It only works on ICOM. I was commissioned to buy ICOM. It works for and with ICOM beautifully. And it comes with its own cable and our wonderful connector. Plug it in and away you go. It has push to talk on it. I love that microphone. You can build an adapter and it'll work on Yaesu and Kenwood. And we have some plans to do that. Okay,
yeah, I was going to ask a question about that, Bob. Question comes up a lot. A lot of guys have got ICOM IC headsets, etc., and the crossover to use them on a Kenwood or a Yaesu.
Yeah,
very easy to do.
Yeah, I will send you the diagram. It's real simple. It takes capacitor, resistor, away you go. Yeah, I'll do that. Here's what happened. The stuff got out here. All of the equalization came out. It was in all of the ICOMs, all the way out through. But the manuals are terrible. I did that. And I put that together and I read the manuals and I go, what? They're just a bunch of gobbledygook. It doesn't mean anything. Here is what means something. I think you'll get a lot from this. Let's take all of them. They're the same, from the Pro 1 to the 705, everything, the 7851, the 7610, so on and so on. They're all the same equalizer that I did. Here you go. First of all, what is the first thing you do when you sit down to a radio? Yeah, I know, you turn it on. What is the very first adjustment before you even know what band you're going to do? You set the transmitter bandwidth. Why do you do that? Because if you don't know what you're going to do, or you don't set it right, it doesn't sound good. We'll play that in a minute, show you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set this for a rag chew. We'll use the 7300. As I said, they're all the same. We're going to roll off the low end, -2. We're going to plus the treble, +3. And as I told you a while ago, we set the bandwidth at 100 to 2900, and away we go. That's the wide setting, and that's it. And then all you have to do is set mic gain. How do you set mic gain in all radios? Oh, I call Bill. He tells me on the morning, yeah, turn it up. No, you are the engineer. You own the station. You don't call up the BBC and say, I think I need more low end. No, they're engineers. They listen. They know how to listen. And they set it. And that's what you have. That's what you should be doing. Listen to yourself in the monitor. Most of the monitors today are pretty good. I like to listen in another receiver. Put the transmitter to dummy load. Hang a little piece of wire on the back of your receiver. You're not going to blow it up. And away you go. I don't put an antenna on because it's going to hear lots of noise and stuff outside. No. And it's wonderful. It's so easy. And what are you going to do about DX? I work DX in contest. Okay, here's what you do. What's the first thing you do? Set the bandwidth to 500 to 2500. You want to get rid of that low end. We do not want low end. We proved that a little bit ago, and I'll come back to that. We're going to minus all the bass, -5. We're going to plus all the treble. Yes, it's going to be a terrible sounding signal. It's not pretty. And I have a lot of people ask me, why do you build a DX element that sounds so bad? Because it puts everything I have where I need it. Where do I need it? You know where I need it. I would hope so. We want to have 2.5K. If we don't have 2.5K, you're just on your little matching microphone and everybody says, well, it's painted the same color. I don't care. It came in the box. It's not right. Their microphones do not have articulation. There you go with 2.5. I think everybody has to agree that is so much better sounding. Well, here's the reason. The first thing you do is you're going to set that bandwidth. Let's take the rag chew. Yeah, I know you're going to say, what is this guy doing? This is a great demonstration. Please watch the screen. This is not some kind of game. This is honest stuff. This is the bandwidth of what we set. And if we set this bandwidth 100 to 2900, and we open up the 2.5 a little bit. Remember, we didn't have it wide open. That's what your signal looks like right there. With a little bump at 2.5. What happens if you're in the contest mode? I've proven to you several times, 2.5K is golden. This isn't Bob Heil speaking. I'm relating to you what 4,000 scientists taught us. And you'll find out when you go into Google. Anyway, we're going to set that bandwidth. If you remember, we set that for DX at 500 on the low end, 2,500 on the top end. So we're going to limit where our RF goes. And we opened the door wide open to 2.5K. So what happens when you do that? Where's the RF going to go? It has to go at 2.5K. You've opened the door. You've opened the door. You rolled off that low end at 500 and bingo, that's the secret. And so we build a lot of things for those operators, but all the radios look alike as far as the controls. They have a different graphics look, even the early Pro ones and all that. But these are things that you need to pay attention to. Dr. Hasegawa, whose family owns Yaesu, came to me a year later at Dayton. He comes into my booth. I want to make it better. You want to do it better. What are we talking about here? Equalization. Okay. If we're going to do that, we're going to do a parametric EQ. Yeah, that'd be good. I said, not so fast. What'd be the problem? Education. Why? You see, with regular two-band shelving, as I did here, and it's in all the ICOMs, you don't have to figure out the bandwidth of that filter. You don't have to figure out where it is. All you get to do is plus or minus treble and bass. Pay attention. This is a big deal. Yaesu has 9. They don't have 2 controls. They have 9. And so therefore, after I did it, the first one was a 9000. And to me, it's the most spectacular transceiver in the world. It has everything going. And they did everything I wanted. Balance line in. Oh, man. It's the only one that has an XLR in it. Why do broadcasters use it? I hope we have got time. There's a great thing I do. Oh, it's just, it's unbelievable.
We can have you on another time, definitely.
Everything needs to be balanced, and it is, but only Yaesu did it with the connector and did it right. Everybody else does it unbalanced. Okay. Well, how do you do that? How do you figure it out? See, you have to figure out the frequencies. And it is pretty simple. Let's look at one of their charts. You notice I fuzzed out all the other stuff because every one of the Yaesus, now listen up, every Yaesu has my same parametric EQ in it. It's a 3-band equalizer. It has 3 filters. Let's take the first one. You'll see we set the frequency at 200. I want to roll that low end off a little bit. You could set it at 100. And the next is minus 3 dB, maybe minus 5, whatever you want to roll it off at. Bandwidth is 2. We'll come back to that. Okay, where are we going to set the next filter? See, this is the problem. You have to figure it out, and most people don't, so they just leave it in the default mode. It's really sad. Every hall I've been in, every time I play with anything of audio, there's something about 900 hertz. It's actually 800 to 12 right in there. Do this to your ears, and you'll hear that boxy sound. That's what we have to get rid of. It happens in all audio. So we go to 900, we minus that little baby by 3 dB, 2 octaves of bandwidth. But what do you do about the third? And boy, I sure hope you already would have that set. 2.5K plus 8. I mean, we want to screech it. You heard what we did earlier. The parametric equalizer, you can move things around. So important. You go to our website, you'll see this page. And it's so simple. And the other thing about it is that they have not one set of 3 filters, 9 controls. They have another set just for processing. Well, I'm here to tell you, and you'll probably beat up on me, I hate processing. I do not use compression. I don't need compression. If I have proper microphone, I have proper use of that microphone. That's another situation. And I have the right equalization. I don't need compression. All it does for me is add distortion, no matter what you do with it. And so I get in a lot of a lot of not arguments, but we do we do have difference of an opinion. I'm only going by the scientist myself. One thing about that bandwidth, you see what happens with bandwidth. That audio filter, if you set it at say 900 hertz, if you set the bandwidth wider, it would go down to maybe 600 out to 1200 or maybe 15. It has different bandwidths. I always like to use the green. I like the mid range of band. I just set it there. Don't argue with it. Just set it, forget it. And the other thing about it is that all of this is on our website, and you don't want to be strapped with the fact that, well, I got a new SX101 and it's not the same numbers. I don't care what the numbers are. I don't care. You don't care. It's 3 filters: frequency, level, width, frequency, level, width, frequency, level, width. Now, was that hard? What's the first thing you would have done? Set the bandwidth, and away you go. It's so simple. One thing about Yaesu, be sure you save it. No other radio does that. Yaesu, you have to hold the memory button in for about 3 seconds, or all of this is for naught. And all of this is on our website. If worse to worse, email me. We'll get on Skype. We'll help you. The microphone that I choose for just about everything today is the PR781. It is absolutely the most incredible microphone for ham radio. I don't care whose it is. I've had them all in here. I've A-B'd them. This is the baby, because it's a PR40 that I rolled the last octave and a half off. And it works so good. It's also become the podcaster's dream microphone. We do a lot of podcasting. But again, for Ragchew, you want to set that EQ to plus that 2.5, and you want to roll off the low end. For DX, you want a lot of mid-range and roll off all of it. And how do you adjust mic gain? ALC meter. If you look at a Yaesu 9000, I told you I got my way on that one. Dr. Hasagawa, he really helped me. There is no ALC meter. I took it off. The meter that's there says mic gain, because that's exactly how you adjust mic gain. You don't call your buddies. You adjust it, and you never want to see it in the red. You look at this meter over my shoulder. You don't ever see that up in the red. On the peaks, yeah, maybe. And I don't even like to see the ALC, just every bit on a heavy peak. That's how you do it. And it works so good. And of course, if you're doing Ragchew, that's a different story. And if you have a transceiver that doesn't have it, there are some great equalizers. Julius Stone has a wonderful one. It's been out a long time. But Sergi, UR6QW has this 8-band. And these are all wonderful things. And they'll help you a lot. But we want to roll off that low end. And then our elements that we're building, it started actually in 1985 when the California DX Club called me and said, we want you to build us a microphone that we can use on our DXpeditions. Okay. And so I did. And I came up with the BM10. I love the BM10. This is a wonderful headset, not very expensive, but it's really good. It's very lightweight, and it sounds terrific. And again, it's made for a special purpose, but it's wonderful. But here's the deal. Let me plug this in. I developed a microphone for DX work, rolled off everything under 500 hertz. I mean, it was gone. They call it the DX Dream Machine. That came from one of the DXers years ago. Still building it. Today it's called the HC74. It's the same thing as the 4. Here, I'll let you listen to it. And no, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. Not even close to being pretty. Because the deal here is that it's made for DX work. There we go. And again, down a little bit. It's strictly there for DX. It sounds terrible. But guess where all of the articulation is? 2.5, because there's no low end. This doesn't allow low end. And if you remember the balloon, we can put it where we need it. So all of this is so important. Audio is so important. And what sounds good to one doesn't maybe the other, but you have to listen and watch the science of it. And that's very important. Learn to use that microphone. That's another thing that really bugs me. Guys will be 2 feet away from the microphone, turn up the gain, and they sound like they're in a roller rink. It's awful. You can't do that. The scientists, if you read all their stuff, you should never be, ever more than 2 inches. Never, ever. That's so important. And all of our microphones come with this little guy. And I've heard a lot of guys say, hey, take that stupid muff off. You found muffled. Well, if it is, it's not right. We make these, they are acoustically transparent. And on the P's and the B's, the air from your voice drives that voice coil down, and bingo, the diaphragm hits the bottom. Where you go. Put that on. Doesn't happen. It's so simple. And it comes with all of our microphones. So please use it, because that is a fix. That is a fix. And again,
yeah, copy that.
Check this out.
Yeah. Okay.
Talk about plosives.
I haven't been on as much as I'd hoped, that's for sure, but I have been on sometimes early mornings, and not the last couple, though. It actually hurt to sit here at the desk and move the mouse around. And today's not.
That air is driving his diaphragm down into that, and it just, I have a very difficult time listening to some of those guys. But it's just all very simple things. But you go to our website under support, and we have all things ICOM, all things Yaesu, all things Kenwood, Elecraft, and others. It's about 50 some pages. So you want to get into that, and you want to pay attention. But our microphones, I didn't build a lot of microphone things before for ham radio before 2000 until Joe Walsh, one of my best friends. We're sitting at his kitchen table one day. He said, Heil, you got to build me a better microphone. I don't want to have to be stuck right in front of it like all these others. And I want something that really gives us nice rejection. Well, you know what I'm talking about. You see these singers and everybody, they got to have that microphone right here. They can't move. Well, Joe had me develop a microphone that we can move around. And it's very important. We have an omni pattern on the front, only the front. See, others, they'll do an omni pattern, but it's in the back. So it's around all of the microphone. No, we did it just on the front. You watch the screen. I'm 180 around and it's great. 90 off, you don't hear a difference. That is so helpful to everybody, because we don't want to be off microphone where you don't have to. But then he said, hey, you need to build me a microphone that gets rid of all this stuff in the rear. And so I did. And before I do that, I got time. My most favorite subject, and I can spend an hour here, but I'm going to spend a couple of minutes because you're never going to forget this. I have 2 microphones. They're alike. Yeah, different colors. Okay. When I speak into both of them, it goes up 3 dB. You can't detect 3 dB, but that's doubling your power. That'll be something for you to think about. I also have a lot to do on that thing, but we won't right now. But what happens if I take one of these microphones out of phase? I have this nice little plug. Okay. Well, hey, it didn't change. No, it didn't. This one is in phase. When I speak into it, the diaphragm goes down. This one is out of phase. When I speak into it, it comes up. Whoa. What happens when you talk into two signals, or you have two signals out of phase? Watch the screen and listen. This isn't a magic act, it's science. Nothing. They cancel. Now, oh my gosh, how many minutes, hours could we be here? How does your antenna work? When some guy comes onto your signal and he's doing all kinds of stupid stuff, hit the notch filter, he's gone. How's the Yagi work? Noise canceling my headset. How's the filters work? Balance line mics. How did Wes Shum get rid of the carrier and sideband? It's all phasing. All of it. There's so much, because two signals out of phase cancel. So Joe said, build me a microphone that gets rid of all the rears. So I built what we call the PR40. It has become an amazing microphone for just about everything. I didn't realize it in the beginning that it was going to be that successful. We have so many broadcasters using it. We have podcasters, and it's in so many recording studios. It would really freak me out. But live bands and ham radio. I didn't design it for ham radio because this thing is broad. It has the widest frequency response of any microphone. It's 28 hertz on the low end out to 16, 18 on the top end. And so, everything was the RE20 and the whatever, the S7s and all that. This thing blows it away. And that is why people like Sirius Radio, they just bought 250 of them last year, got rid of all their REs, so on. I'm very, very blessed by this because it's all about ham radio. Now let's get back to Joe. Watch this screen. Of course, I have that great Omni in the front. I got 40 dB down in the back. Watch. Oh, it's still there. It still works, but it's 40 down, 40. No other dynamic microphone will do this. And so now we can use it for all kinds of things in the broadcast and recording. And how I did it was it's out of phase. It's so simple. All the Shuers and the Electro Voice, they have 4 little holes. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 little 1/8-inch holes for them. Big deal. That's for their rear rejection. Well, that's not enough. I have the largest dynamic ever built. That's another thing. It's 1 3/8 inches. It's not 3/4 like all the others. All of the dynamic mics, maybe they'll get to 1 inch, but they're not this big. And we figured out how to make it work. And so now the whole bottom of that's open, so we can get ridiculous amount of rejection. And it's just an amazing microphone. I'm so thrilled, so thrilled. And again, there's so many more things that we can get into about phasing. I've got a whole deal on phased arrays. I put up a phased array some years back, and it was so simple to build. And well, you have 3 minutes. Want me to play that or not?
We've got 3 minutes. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, we've got some other things that let's come back sometime and do the phasing and all the different antenna things I have, because I got a ton of them.
Okay.
We
do that. We'll do that another time for the viewers. I'm sure they appreciate that, and we get a bit of feedback as well and ask them what they'd like to see from you.
Yeah, because I mean, even simple things of how to properly put coax connectors on coax. No, it's not the way you think. And things like how to bring things into your room. I have things not to do, that you don't want to do this. This is not to do. And SWR, oh, you don't want to get me going on this. You know, SWR is flat here. Well, yeah, right. But there's a true thing about that. And we get into how to make use one microphone onto a lot of rigs, the Pine Board project, how to build transmitters. We've had a lot of this going on in the past few years. So there's all kinds of subject matter. And I'm hoping that we can make it happen. So, you know, there's just so many things. I would like to have 1 minute to show you what I'm so thrilled about, and that's our parametric receive audio system. I built this system actually with other things happening. I wanted to do it so that I could help people that were hard of hearing. And I didn't see anything out there like this. There are things out there, but they're not like this, trust me. And so we came up with a wonderful, wonderful idea. It's not an idea, it's science. And first of all, it has 3 filters, with the mids being parametric. The most important thing I find outside of that is the headphone amp. The headphone amplifier is amazing. There are 2 of them, not 1, 2. And what happens here, we can have a logger, you can have the operator, but you can have a left and a right side of your headphones. So if you're hearing them balanced, you can correct that. This is truly amazing. And we're seeing more of these putting to service for people with headphones, not only amateur radio, but television, selling a ton of these to people with with televisions, because televisions are terrible. It has an output. These are all separate amplifiers. They're not just little Y chords like others would do. This comes out into your computer and you make beautiful, beautiful recordings. There are 3 filters, one at 6K, the bottom's at 160 Hertz. And then the mids are parametric from 800 to 400. It's just unbelievable. And here is a little bit of what we've done.
At about 30 words a minute.
This is a D104, by the way. It's all highs.
Sure enough, I can copy it. I had a lot of fun the other night. I thought, well, I wonder
we
if
can
I
make
that at
a good signal out of something that's so screechy.
30 words a minute, and so I speeded up the tape. And
but then comes the biggie. Here is the DX. This is flat the way you hear it. Check this out. 2 point.
Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo.
Here's the way you hear it. This is flat.
Sierra, Germany. From Ireland. India, Alpha Mike, over.
There it is flat.
Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo.
And I don't think there's any problem with any arguments about that. You can't. It's an amazing piece of science, of audio science, that I learned from 4,000 of the scientists reading through all their stuff. And I sure hope you guys and gals get to do that, because you'll learn so much. But the parametric receive audio system is incredible. The speaker is magnificent. There it is there. It has a 25 watt. We're not talking about little 4 and 5 watt things. We're talking 25 at 0.1% distortion. And I learned all that from Paul Klipp. He taught me how to tune a cavity to the speaker. Look at the size of those magnets. And it has a 3.5-inch titanium tweeter. And no, you're not going to use 25 watts, but you have tons of headroom. I don't like distortion. And it doesn't cost much to get all of that audio. And I have a lot of guys using it for all kinds. I got guys using it as a little PA system. So all kinds of things. So that's the story. I do hope that you all own our handbook. If not, it's for sale at, of course, Martin Lynch. It's got all of these things that I learned early on. I didn't write this, I compiled it. A lot of great information about the science of this hobby. And you can go to our website and download this. It all starts at the microphone. It is really, really great. There's so much stuff in there that you can learn. And last but not least, we're the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That console you see behind me is what I built for the Who to do Quadrophenia. It's the quadraphonic sound system that we built for him. That's one of the rear speakers. We built our own amplifiers and stuff. On the other side of that is a mixer that we built for ZZ Top. And a few years back, I received an honorary PhD in music and electronics. And you're looking at a kid that I barely made it through high school, and Mizzou thinks I should have a PhD. And after they learned about some of the many things we did, I was very honored by that. I really thank you for your time today. I hope to come back. There's so many subjects we could spend an hour on, and they're so useful. So you just give me a call and we'll get on good old Zoom and away we go.
We will do. And thank you very much as well. I mean, I've certainly learned a lot from this, that's for sure. And Gary, yourself?
It's been brilliant. I actually followed along the Pine Board project, and when you pulled that out, that brought back some memories. That was a good project.
Right. Still building them, by the way. Antique Electric Supply have kits. So they can tell me.
Got to keep going. You've got to keep going, Bob.
Thank you so much.
That's brilliant. No, thank you. And once again, I'll look up to camera for this one. Just for our customers as well, there is a special on Heil products as well during this weekend, as it would have been the Hamfest. So please make sure you get your orders in. And we've got a new shipment coming over as well in the next couple of weeks, which will be shipped over. And again, just want to say thank you to Bob as well for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. And without doubt, I think we're definitely getting back in for some more.
Yeah, I'm intrigued now. There's quite a lot there.
Yeah, it's been nice actually, just to sit back and listen for a change. So. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you very soon. And thanks again, Bob. Don't forget, you can come and get your Heil at Martin Lynch & Sons. Thank you.